The race is on, it seems like. What's it like from your perspective to see the race and who's running in parallel with you?
You have to leverage what you do as a fundamental business. We have, over 100 and something million customers where we can now issue cards to that don't have them today. It's not about a race to who can do the first coin or who can do the first blockchain. It's who can furnish the first use cases. If we can go to an emerging country, an emerging space that is underbanked or underbanked, and give them digital Visa cards that they can get funding to from loved ones, you've serviced the use case that they have a need versus we've got a coin on a blockchain, yay, good to go. I don't think that's the race.
This episode is brought to you by Uphold, which is a great crypto platform that makes it easy to buy, sell, and stake crypto assets. Uphold has over 300 plus cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and all the top altcoins, and they offer crypto staking on over 19 crypto assets. I've been a user of the platform for many years. They are safe and reliable. They don't commingle or lend out your crypto funds, and they are 100% reserved. You can review their transparency report. Uphold also offers an amazing rewards program where you can earn up to 5.25% on stablecoins. This rewards program also allows you to get 24-hour early access to new tokens that they list. And to participate, you just simply have to open the app once per month, deposit $50 once per month, and trade $50 once per month. And the stablecoins that they support includes Ripple's RLUSD. You can earn up to 5% on that stablecoin and 5.25% on USBC. So if you'd like to learn more about Uphold and all the great services they offer, visit the link in the description. Hey everyone, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and we are recording at Station 3 in New York's Financial District. And joining me is Malcolm Clarke, who is the VP of Digital Assets at Western Union. Malcolm, great to have you.
Thank you for inviting me. This is exciting.
Yeah, Malcolm, I am excited because we were talking before the recording. I've been a user of Western Union for many years, sending money to my family overseas. And to see Western Union launch a stablecoin and embracing blockchain is so fascinating. So I'm excited to learn the details from you. Maybe we can kick it off with your background. Tell us a bit about where you grew up and what's your professional background.
Sure. So I grew up in Manchester in the UK. So like yourself, not a traditional US kid. Background-wise, had a very interesting early career in telecoms, so working on the first mobile apps, first BlackBerries, which was interesting, so that's going to age me right now. So now you're talking to an older guy. Then had an opportunity to move to North America through Canada, so worked for TD Bank in Canada, where I built out the first digital asset network. So a number of years ago, already playing in the blockchain space of how do you secure privacy by design, your essential identity, and share it with others on a blockchain through Hyperledger. So partnership with the major banks there, and then really having what you would call a relying party, so a store. And then the banks, you would log in and provide your identity to those stores or to the government in a secure manner. So after that, had the opportunity to move to San Francisco with Zelle Early Warning to build out a very similar identity platform, working through the Zelle ecosystems, and then found myself going through a Japanese bank running AI services and landed at Western Union about 8 months ago, where I picked up ecosystems, which is the digital wallets and digital assets. So working through that journey and bringing Western Union, as you said, a traditional money transmit company, global footprint, lots of people use us into a crypto asset, digital asset space. So yeah, very interesting time, and stable coins and the Genius Act has really been that catalyst to start really pushing after this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And in your journey in the banking, finance, payments world, you mentioned you were at TD Bank and starting to set things up with digital assets and so forth. How did you hear about Bitcoin or blockchain? And was it a natural thing for you to recognize it and say, hey, this looks like it's the future?
It's interesting because, back then, much like stable coins now, they've been around for a while. So this isn't some new thing that suddenly has become, it's a good buzzword. It's a trend at the moment. So that's great. And it's driving adoption. Back then, we were using R3 Corda and doing things with the bank account. So how do you use a smart contract to move funds between institutions? So almost into that, tokenized deposit space, as you would call it now. How are you using, those smart contracts to, essentially move funding? Then at the time, we're in a space where the banks are looking at how do you add additional service. So you have a deposit account, you have your mortgage, you have these traditional finances. What is the trends at the moment and how can you add those services to the bank? So payments are always, you've always got two issues with payments. One is speed. The second is security and safety. Right. So speed is solved with, the Interact network did same day deposit, email transfers. Safety security was really driven around identity and saying, okay, if you can add an identity to the payment, create that token as a safe, secure token between the banks, then are you in a better place? So the answer is yes. So what's the technology that could do that? And that's where you get to, well, blockchain's evolving. It's, one of the blue chips of the bank. So what can we do in blockchain? How can we leverage R3? How can we leverage Hyperledger? How can we leverage Bitcoin? So it's really a natural evolution of saying the blockchain allows for immutable digital movement of things in a secure manner. It means every other bank can't see the identity, the government can't see the identity unless they need it and the consumer permissions it. So it's really natural how I got into that space and started working with the payment network, the identity network, and the safety security and pulling them together. So it wasn't you wake up one morning, you're like, that seems to be the path, let's do this. It doesn't, it has to be more natural evolution. Otherwise it just becomes a buzz and a trend and it drops off. So it's got to have real foundation in utility, use case, and why you would do this.
Oh, absolutely. And that totally makes sense in discovering the use cases and the utility. And, you mentioned using Hyperledger Fabric, and that is more of a permission private chain, but there are public blockchains. Do you see that the future will include both? Like institutions will have their own internal chain, so to speak, but they're maybe bridging to public chains.
Yeah, I think like institutions, so you're talking Canada's 5 major banks 9 years ago created a permissioned private blockchain on Hyperledger. So innovation kind of at the forefront 9 years ago. So banks have continued to evolve. So permission-based blockchains, permission-based tokenization of assets, that's a thing. That's what they do today. R3-Quarter's been around for a long time. I think that will continue. So the banks will continue to store tokenized assets. It will continue to store tokenized stock or those types of things. They are fundamentally localized banks, like global banks still have localization. Stablecoins and those public blockchains, they're really the speed on top. So they're the edge. And that's where you're going to see the innovation you're seeing now in the driving with, the permissions of the Genius Act and things. How do I take that tokenization that's going to work on the institutional layer, and how do wallets really leverage that to move things quickly internationally? So banks still work 5 days a week, 9 to 5. Weekends are not a thing. Commerce runs 24/7. Yeah. So that's where you see the stablecoin and the public stuff and the permission stuff. They will layer on top of each other because still institutions are going to need to move large money around. Large money movements are they're permissioned, they're regulated, they're governed, they're protected. Fast movement is protected by the organizations that move it and in that manner. So I think they both come together and they stay together. I don't think it's one or the other. I don't think you're going to see quickly, at least, large institutions moving their treasury between two ginormous institutions on a public blockchain. It's just, there's no need to do that. There's the value of doing that, the benefit of doing that. It's just not there. So, yeah.
And not to mention privacy, right? There's certain things they don't want out there on the public chains.
See, we'll get into why Solana later, I guess. Sure. So Solana, there's some interesting developments in the public space. So privacy is one of those interesting conversations. Like the crypto world, grew up with, it's got to be open, it's got to be public. You have to have complete transparency in everything that's happening, because if you don't, then, essentially why are we doing this? And you're trying to not go down the institution path. You want the openness. However, there has to be a balance that says some things in a transaction you do want to protect. Like you do want to protect certain things, like the value of the transactions, the volume, because frankly, it doesn't have value to the world, has value to individuals. So Solana and their extensions is a very interesting way of saying you can program parts of your smart contract where you do add the privacy layer. And then if somebody needs to see that, much like a bank today, you can do a legal requirement, a legal intercept, or a legal warrant to actually have that transaction unlocked to see what's happening, because that's the people who need to see it. So the privacy by design piece is very interesting when you get into that public permissioned private permissioned, public open. Like there needs to be privacy somewhere. So again, that's going to be an interesting evolution in this space.
Pardon the interruption. Hi, I'm Tony. I'm the host of the Thinking Crypto podcast. I wanted to ask you if you can please support the podcast by hitting the like button, subscribing if you haven't as yet. You can leave a comment below as well. And if you're listening on a podcast platform such as Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, please be sure to follow and hit the 5-star rating. I'll let you get back to the content. Thank you so much. So there's a question I'm going to ask you. I know the answer, but I'm thinking of the folks who are new to all this. They may have used Western Union in the past and so on and so forth. Why is Western Union creating a stablecoin?
So we thought it'd be fun. No, my CEO said do it. No, I'm totally joking. No, I think there's a couple of things that are happening globally right now. There are users. They're not going to care whether we have a stable coin or we send you money with a flying unicorn. To them, it's about speed. It's about getting the money where they need it in the most simplest way, the best utility. Stable coins for Western Union, there are actually 3 programs that mean something very different when you apply the lens. So for us, we move billions of dollars globally. We are restricted sometimes by the banking network. So, the 5 days a week, the 9 to 5, weekends are not a thing. So the treasury use case for our coin is actually, it's fairly obvious. So it says if I can move liquidity, 7 days a week, 24/7 to the places I need it, it actually changes my economics. It creates, capital value for me because I'm not parking capital. And it means whatever I move, I can hold yield versus today I move money here, I move money there, and I have pools of funding set all over the place. So if you take that as your economic premise for Western Union, it says, look, we have an economic pool now. That is a new pool. It's operation efficiency. It means we can control our capital better. We can do things with that. And it gives me levers. So that's one reason why the consumers, frankly, don't care.
Sure.
The opposite side of that is what are the use cases and the adoption and the consumer side that I can leverage that too. So, we were speaking before we started around you sending money home and you're gifting. The natural flow is you'll send money, you'll walk into a store, you'll take that cash and go and spend it, but it's cash. So cash is king in a lot of places. With stablecoin, we're able to do things like issue a digital card or a physical card in places that naturally we don't exist. So we have a stable card program and we're able to say, hey, the money that's going to your family member, they can now take a card here. So it's early banking if they don't have banking, or it's access to tap and spend, digital payments. I can go online and pay my phone bill because I actually have a card number now. I can do those things. So the same coin that's going to drive my treasury is going to drive my consumerization. So I have a US dollar denominated value on a Visa card. So that moves instantly, economics are there, and there's some loyalty you can put around that in the future, and you can use that. So that's a consumer use case. So what changes for Western Union consumers is they now get a global access to a card. 57 countries, pretty global. That's one. Second, really big one is our partner network. So Western Union is evolving to say, how do we give access to the things we have as critical things like our stores to everybody else in the B2B space? So
Sure.
Crypto wallets, stablecoin wallets, they still have a last mile problem. So I'm really good at getting digital to digital. So I can send you money, you can send it to your digital bank, you can send it through, PayPal's or whoever, but you want cash, you're really restricted to an ATM, which is expensive, or a money exchange place, which is going to be like change it into Tether, and then I'm going to take 20%, which I saw in Colombia this weekend. And it's a really convoluted, very restricted flow that gets quite expensive for the end user. What we're saying to these wallet partners is, hey, you can leverage our network, put in Western Union as the ability to exit on your network, and you can go directly into my store and take cash. So the user flow is, you're in your wallet, let's pick Kraken, because it's, we all know who Kraken are. You have your wallet balance, and you're able to say, look, I want to send it to Western Union, complete the FX, and then walk into that store and then just take the cash. And the FX is, it's there. It's a very clean and clear fee if you're paying, which is a small fee, and then you walk out with the cash at the end. So you're actually really turning it to that last mile cash. We have close to 400,000 stores globally. So you have 400,000 places on this planet that these wallet providers can now say, you can get cash. So we have 4 big partners, large partners joining the network. We have a pipeline of other ones coming through that are going to leverage this. So it's interesting how you have the economics, the use case for users, and the business to business use cases just wrapped in the same USDPT stablecoin.
Wow. That's incredible. And I love to see and hear of the technology making people's lives better. And, here in the United States and some of the developed countries, it's easy for us to say, oh, yeah, I don't need that. But in other countries, people absolutely need these things. Um, and the stablecoin is called USDPT, and it's built on the Solana blockchain. So tell us why Solana was selected, and are there plans to expand to other blockchains?
So yeah, so we selected Solana. So we looked at a couple of things. When you're selecting technology and you're an institution, especially a public one, you go through a process of, technology fit, partner fit, roadmap, what they have coming down the pipeline. Blockchains, they're really not businesses that are normal businesses where you're paying for a service, you're leveraging their capability, they help you fund other things. So Solana, they closed two gaps for us. So one, on their roadmap with extensions, they have this ability to close the privacy, which we spoke before. So that ability to say, hey, we have extensions on our blockchain you can leverage to close certain things in your smart contracts. So when you're moving between your agents or your big institutions, you can essentially hide certain things because you don't want them on a public blockchain. So that was a big one. The second one is Solana's gone through teething problems in the past. They've really got to a point where them, Stellar, other networks, they're really running about the same now. They're running the same speed. They have the same, utility for users. They have those fast use cases. So they kind of all fit in the same. So we like Solana because they've got that capability. The last thing is something that Solana do really well and actually really enjoy working with them on. They have these pods, I think they call them pods that they have globally, that look at use cases for DeFi, crypto native use cases, really unlocking the market to say, if you use the Solana blockchain and the stable coins running on the blockchain, one of them being ours, then they will introduce developers, new natives to blockchain to the ecosystem, and then bring them to the table so we can work directly with them, or we can, understand their use cases and give them benefits like, oh, you can use the Western Union stores, or we can give you loyalty for that use case. So we have this really great development arm that takes our foundation and really drives at those use cases. And they've been a fantastic partner in that, and they promised that at the time of picking, and they've really followed through with that stuff. So they've got some interesting things going on. Other blockchains, we're going to do Ethereum contracts at some point. Obviously, We're an institution, we're moving to an institution, having our own smart contracts makes sense. Who knows? There's plenty of blockchains coming out. Circle has their own.
Yeah.
Our friends at Stripe have their own. There's Base, the name, all of them like this.
Right.
So they're all developing, they're all evolving, they've all got unique use cases coming to the market. There's all things that they're going to bring to a financial institution like ourselves from money remittance space, where we can go to those blockchains for use cases as well. And, again, this is foundational for us at Western Union. It's not a 3-month project and then we're going to go and do something else. Like, genuinely is a foundational piece for our organization for the next iteration as we evolve as an organization.
Appreciate you sharing that thought, because that was going to be a question. Is this a R&D project, temporary thing, but it sounds like it's going to be a big part of the fabric.
It was an R&D project. No, it's absolutely fabric. So to give you some insight and how we think about these things, the guiding principle at the moment is we're going to partner with best of breed technology. We're going to partner to accelerate ourselves into the market. There is a long, deliberate, strategic roadmap and plan of building capability around digital asset. We're evolving into a digital asset payment company. This is fundamental for how we move things in treasury, the use cases we put to consumer, and essentially you can certainly see a day where all of the money movement moves on a USDPT coin. You don't need to move fiat around if you follow the train through. So this is absolutely foundational to what we do. It's not an R&D project. We're long past thinking about R&D and POC and testing here. We're into the of the 57 markets we're going to launch a card, which one? And it's all 57. We're having lots of interesting conversations around what's the first market we're going to try and then launch the rest. So it's very much we're going and doing this.
Now, there's lots of demand for the US dollar around the globe because it's the world reserve currency, but there are other large currencies like the euro. Are there plans to potentially create a euro version or whatever else?
So I'm European, so I mean, no, we're going to be US dollar only. No, I'm joking. No, absolutely. So I think like part of the logic of calling it USDPT, so PT being payment token, is that USD denomination can change to MX for Mexico or ERC for Europe or whatever coin we choose. The interoperability of that will be within our organization, and the ability to say, like, we need a MiCA compliant European coin, the swap of that we can control. So, I can send you, you're sat in Spain, I'm sat in the US, I can send you USDPT, and then you can decide I want to hold US dollars in Spain, or I can just swap it to ERC, becomes European PT. So what you're doing there is you're taking that traditional finance FX currency marker, moving it to a stablecoin layer, which is really just that fast transaction. And that swap happens where, we would do the FX. We do FX today. We're actually quite good at FX rates. We would do the FX and do the swap. What's interesting, you actually open some very interesting user experience problems with stablecoin movement. So if you take a use case where I think you spoke earlier, it was Ghana, if I remember.
Guyana, yeah.
Guyana. Right? Ghana is a different place.
Yeah.
One's in Latam, one's in Africa.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you send currency there, so if I was to send my mum today money to the UK and I send her US dollars, bless her, she's a nurse in her 70s. She's going to be like, what am I going to do with dollars? Like, I don't want dollars. That's not going to be helpful. So actually in the user experience, sending that USDPT and holding it and then being able to represent the local currency in the UI of this is what US dollars is worth in GBP today is really interesting because you've got to do that based on where they are in the local currency before they tap the cards. So it's opened some interesting thinking and challenging around what is the local user seeing. They're holding dollars, they want to hold dollars, but they want to see that local rate. And if I spend on my card, I want to know my coffee was, 3 pesos, not, $1.70. So it's going to be an interesting consumer test here of how they, accept spending in US dollars. Do they eventually go away from local currency? And I don't think they do. I don't know the local currency and governments don't want to hurt that. So,
and speaking of the user experience, so will Western Union present this stablecoin in the forefront of using the Western Union app or website, or will it just be running in the behind the scenes, or maybe that may change over time?
It's going to change over time. So if you take the standard users we have today and I have today, they're money transmitter users. They're not, some of them are crypto native, so we can't be generalized. So some are crypto native, some are crypto users, but the majority are, I'm sending money for a purpose and I'm going to give you dollars and it's going to appear as pesos on the other side. And what I want to know is the fee, the FX rate, and what am I telling my loved one or the person I'm sending to how much they're getting so they can walk into store and getting it. So USDPT is going to be in the background. It's not going to sit in the forefront of those users. The receiver, though, the person getting the funds, is going to be on the forefront. So when you get that funding message, which is either a WhatsApp or a text message or an omni-channel message saying you have money from Malcolm, then you have the opportunity to say, well, I'm going to go and walk in and get my cash, or I'm going to get a USDPT stable card. I'm going to hold it in USDPT on my Visa card.
Right.
And I'm going to go through the process to get that Visa card, and then I can tap wherever I need to go. So the sender's not going to see it, but the receiver is absolutely going to see it. So again, that's down to the use case of where the users are needing it and kind of filling that need versus let's just put it on the front end. Let's put it all over the place. Like we're being very deliberate. Over time, that's going to change. And again, it's a journey we're on. We're not doing this as a R&D project. So the journey will get us there when the users get there.
That's incredible. And then are there plans to offer yield? Stablecoin yield is a big thing, especially here in the United States. Big debate happening right now with the banks.
It's going to be loyalty based. So I think there is a little bit of grayness. So if my legal friend was sat here, he'd be burning through me with his eyes right now about how I'm going to answer this because I have a very different opinion than the legal opinion. So there is a lot of grayness in offering yield. I think in Europe it's a no-no. In certain parts of the world they've already been very explicit about you can't share yield, you can't share yield for holding. So hold my coin for 30 days or hold 10,000 coin and I'll give you yield. That's been and done. For me, it's about loyalty and it's about giving usage loyalty, which we do today. So if you use, X number of money transmissions, we'll give you X, benefit for doing it. So if you use the card X amount of times, we'll give you, points against usage. We'll give you 1% cashbacks. So that's a normal market construct that exists today. We will follow that same construct, as opposed to saying explicitly, hold the coin for 10 days and we'll give you a share of yield. I think that gets into the securities. It's a security holding model, and you want to avoid that as best you can.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And especially, look, we have the Genius Act passed here in the United States, but across the globe, legislation is still being worked on in different countries and jurisdictions. So you kind of have to wait to see, right?
Yeah, and that's where you go back to what is commonly acceptable. Like cashback is a commonly acceptable thing. Like usage, if you send X, you get free usage of X, is very much a construct. But I think it's interesting. You talk about why is stablecoin valuable versus other currencies or cryptos. I think you've got that peg of 1-to-1, and it's always worth whatever one you put in. So in this instance, US dollars. People don't want to get paid in something they're not sure about. So if I'm a gig worker in, pick a country, India, and I'm working for a US employment company, I can't get paid in US dollars easily. I don't have an account to do that, but they can pay me in crypto. So paying me in a coin or a value that I know is worth $1 to $1 that I can exit is actually valuable. They don't want to get paid in air miles. They don't want to get paid in stuff that really isn't quantifiable and could change. They can then turn that into Bitcoin or whatever they wish. But really, that's where these interesting use cases go later on. So, the construct of future roadmap of how do I create what would be a normal direct deposit account or a bank account now as a digital wallet, where you can get your salary paid into that in a stable coin you can trust that you can exit locally. That changes that traditional finance to digital finance. That's a very different construct of banking right now. Does the same thing, like your bank, you get your money in there, they give you a mortgage and things. Well, get my money into my digital wallet, I can move it globally quickly. Still have to pay my mortgage, of course, but that's kind of an interesting, place where I see these things becoming more native in that space.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about how USDPT is compliant with the Genius Act and the requirements of reserves and how that all functions behind the scenes.
Yeah, so we, again, partner first. So we're leveraging Anchorage Digital Bank. So Anchorage are an OCC bank. And very much as you would expect, if you're in this space, if you're not, I'll explain it slightly. So the reserve works, we deposit in Anchorage, we mint the coin directly in Anchorage, and then that coin becomes available in the exchanges through the market makers. We use it in our treasury, and then we can use it for use cases. So they're an OCC Genius compliant bank. Genius compliant is Genius they don't give you a compliance tag. They give you, we have no challenge here. So our coin has a no challenge on it, which means it fits within the Genius framework and regulation. So that's how we stay compliant. I think others have got pre-approvals of compliance. So the Paxos and others in the space have. So that's really how you can ensure that adoption. I think some are going to have to change their business models slightly now. I know some give big yields or shares on holding coins. Again, they'll just call that loyalty at some point, or they'll call it cashback. They'll figure out a way. Maybe they'll listen to this and just be like, we'll just call it cashback now. So who knows? But yeah, so that's how we remain, and we stay within that compliance piece. And that framework's important because, again, we're a regulated entity through Money Transmit. We're a regulated entity in, many countries. We have banks. We have banks in Europe and some parts of LATAM. So we want to remain in regulatory framework in pretty much all we do. So the Genius Act gives us that box and framework that says, hey, if you behave in this framework and stay within it, then you're in a regulatory bounds, which is a good thing. So again, Genius Act was a catalyst for us to accelerate this stuff versus if it didn't exist, you're always wondering what the regulator might do. Investing time in people like myself and others, regulator comes in and is like, well, stable's now a security. You're like, oh great, now we're an R&D project. Good job. So that's important.
Malcolm, do you see this model of what Western Union is doing as the future of payments? Let's say 10 years from now, stablecoins are powering the rails, right? And the end user may not know, but in certain instances, like how Western Union is saying, hey, you can do it on you want to use the card or whatever it may be. This is the model.
I think my answer is a lean towards yes. I think so. And why I'm not 100% yes is because it's very hard to make those predictions. I think, again, if you take the construct that a stable coin is the speed of global movement and it provides that one-to-one security, then everything is lining up well to say, yes, this is going to be the payment and how payments in the future are going to move. Banks remain local, they remain token assets, they remain local market. Banks have difficulty because of central banks moving to global models quickly, whereas payment companies can ride across those global models. So we can ride banking rails in Europe, we can ride banking rails in Mexico, we can ride banking rails in the US, and then put that stable coin across the top of that. So as a user, you can get the fast access to funding, and then you can dip into the local rail if you need it to go into your bank account and get changed in this currency, or you can dip into the payment rail of Visa to spend it, or you can dip into the cash rail of Western Union to get cash. So I believe, yes, this is the future of payments, that it will ride on top as a new layer, and you still dip into the traditional finance places we still have to pay our mortgages, so we have to put something into the bank to pay the mortgage. We still have to pay our phone bills, so our phone bills work on, in most countries, you can go and pay in person, but generally it's a digital transaction with a card. You still need cash to pay the market, so you still need cash. So I think all those three things still exist. I think this just allows the money to move globally at a much quicker speed. And you're seeing some interesting payment, and then you're seeing DeFi stuff coming in that now is becoming a bit more real. So I do believe I'm leaning towards, yes, this is the way this will go. And Western Union, the belief is that's how we're going to move things. Like we will, this is a digital, part of our company. We have three parts. We have money in, money out, and digital, which is funds use. So this is how funds get used. So it's interesting.
A follow-up question on what the end user, so I send money to my cousin in another country and the options they get. Do you think it's necessary for them to have some sort of Web3 crypto wallet, or it's not necessary because I'm already using the ecosystem or app from?
I think it depends. Look, consumers evolve quickly. They evolve in very interesting ways that you sometimes can't plan for. So I think in certain markets, having Web3 crypto wallets is going to be a thing. So for me, the easiest way to solve that is be interoperable. So a coin is interoperable, it's open. At some point, we'll support multiple blockchains. At some point, we'll support multiple wallets. So if a user says, look, the only thing I need right now is cash, they can go and get cash. I really need a card, I can get a card. I really want to move this and start investing in crypto. I want to start buying, or I want to start using it in Web3 use cases. Or I want to start using it in DeFi. I want to start using it in something else. Then the ability to move it into that and swap it through exchange, or do those things, that's there. So I think that's how you want to make things as utility based as possible in the background, so the users can decide. And by the way, we spoke about Solana and the way they've got their pods. I'm sure they call it pods. If they don't, I'm going to get a phone call about this. They have their communities or pods where they drive out those use cases globally and what people do. The stuff that's going to come out of that, it's really hard to foresee what a community in Africa is going to do with a stable, instant digital currency in a use case that we possibly don't understand in the Western space. So being open and interoperable is going to be important for those things.
Oh yeah, you mentioned interoperable. That seems to be the name of the game because there's so many chains, right? And new chains could pop up 2 years from now.
Oh, so many vendors.
Yeah, and vendors.
There's 10 vendors for everything. It's interesting.
That must be a lot to manage, to get all these partners and vendors on board.
It's a fun experience. So we have a lot of inbound at the moment, and a lot of conversations. But again, you just have to be open to. We don't know everything. You're never going to know everything in this space. And I spoke to some organizations today that they're doing super interesting things that you're like, oh, actually, there's some opportunity here in this region for that. And my view is, we're an open coin. If you want to use the USDPT to do that, that's great. The other thing, and the reason why we built our own coin, is for the right partners and large institutions we work with, we can program that specifically for them. So direct mints, so we can guarantee one-to-one direct burns, and direct access to the smart contract is something that we're willing to do in the right instances, because unlike using a third-party coin where you don't control it and you're not sure what they're going to do in the future, we absolutely control the coin, which means we can determine how it goes and where it goes and the regulatory frameworks of that, versus a Tether or USDC, which are just open market things that they're going to do what's right for them as a business. We have to do what's right for us. So it's an interesting, again, trying to be open, trying to create the shareable layers so that you can move into these things very quickly and really they become R&D projects, if you like. So that's where you do your R&D at the very front.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned that having a stablecoin helps to free up capital that, if I'm not mistaken, it's nostro vostro accounts that sit around the world where you have to have the pool of capital to.
Yes.
So that opens up kind of working capital for Western Union.
That's right. So I can't give you the numbers because I don't remember them, but they're big. Sure. So if you think about our business, take a holiday period where we have to pre-fund our agents so they have cash in draw. And so on a Friday, the treasury team will go and work out through their treasury magic how much they need to pre-fund a country, essentially, for the capital usage and cash usage over that holiday weekend. So that is capital parked. So you're buying currency, you're parking it there, and it sits there. Yeah. And it's left your business and it's sat, and the percentage on that quite high. So now if you can say, okay, I'm not parking that anymore, I'm creating an agent wallet layer and, actually giving them a wallet and moving and loading as they need, or they're pulling and calling. It's a very different business model. So that operational efficiency, not just in terms of how you move the funding, but in terms of the treasurer is not going to lose his hair on a Friday afternoon because he's trying to figure out how much, or she's trying to figure out how much, right down to the capital usage. So it does change the whole capitalization of part of that business as well.
Malcolm, the race is on, it seems like, with even Western Union's competitors, banks, different payment companies. Everyone's trying to create their own stablecoin using blockchain, tokenizing, and much more. What's it like, from your perspective, to see the race and who's running in parallel with you?
It's interesting because I guess I don't look. Because you want to hope you're out in front, and you don't want to ever look behind you because you'll trip up. So that's kind of my very British view of the world. And there's nobody in front of me. I'm the fastest. No, not at all. It's interesting. So you have the other money remittance companies and the people in our space. They're all doing similar, not dissimilar things. Some of them have gone a bit before us. Some of them have gone after us. I think the use cases all become about the same. I think you have to leverage what you do as a fundamental business. So we have, I mentioned it before, a huge retail business, 400,000 stores. So you're leveraging that with third parties. We have, over 100 and something million customers where we can now issue cards to that don't have them today. So really, it's not about a race to who can do the first coin or who can do the first blockchain. It's who can furnish the first use cases. So if we can go to an emerging country, an emerging space that is underbanked or nearbanked, and give them digital Visa cards that they can get funding to from loved ones, you've serviced the use case there. They have a need. They want to hold US dollars because the economic currency situation isn't great. You've serviced a need versus we've got a coin on a blockchain. Yay, good to go. Right. I don't think that's the race. The race is, what do my users need where? Yes. When do they need it? And can we service that need? Do we have to do it right now? So place like Venezuela, they're opening up its very interesting space where they're already spending Tether. They walk around with Tether wallets. They buy hot dogs in Tether. I spoke to the local market people, like, we use Tether all the time. So giving us a stable card is very interesting. That's a need. So it's not about Solana, USDPT, or what blockchain, or whose blockchain, or this vendor, that vendor. It's about, how do I get a card in the hand of a Venezuelan right now so they can get funding from the US, family, friends, and live. Like, it really comes down to that layer. How are you helping people live where they are? Not, they're on a Solana blockchain and we've got a USDPT.
Right.
They don't care. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Yeah. No, well said. For the end user, people who are going about their lives, it needs to work, make their lives better.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. There's a lot happening in the tokenization market where, stablecoins were the first example of tokenization, but folks are looking to put stocks and equities, gold, and other commodities on chain. Is Western Union looking at any of that? Any plans along those lines?
So we haven't started. I think at some point, we're an institution. So tokenization, I think when your banking layer starts doing that, then you start doing it. So again, whilst we talk about the stablecoin and the innovation, how fast it's going, we're still a traditional company. We're over 100 years old. We have banking institution relationships. So as they start tokenizing those assets and those investments and those commodities, then yeah, we will start tokenizing that. But I think that's going to be more a push from the layer versus us pushing down in the layer. I think that tokenization is incredibly interesting for those spaces. Like, we smart contract tokenized years ago. Like, it's really stablecoins has become a big thing. The bank's like, we've got to do something. I worked in big banks, so you kind of know how this goes. It's like, what are we doing in stablecoin? And they're like, well, we could do this, or we can tokenize the gold. Well, let's tokenize the gold.
Right.
So it's a little bit of that going on. So I think, again, overall, it's going to be driven by the institutional layer. I think that traditional finance layer is really going to drive that piece versus a payment layer where we sit clearly in the payment layer, which is where stablecoin is the opportunity of innovation.
Oh, absolutely. And you alluded to it earlier of the 24/7 market. We're seeing a lot of these exchanges and much more are looking to go 24/7 to match crypto, which I would say they started it all. Crypto started it all, right? So how are you, I don't know if that changes your business at all because Western Union's been...
I think it's funny. I walked past. So again, I had the great opportunity this weekend of actually taking some vacation time and getting away from the horrible snow in New York. Yeah. And it's interesting because I must have walked past a number of money exchange places on the high street in Colombia, and they're all closed. So what was super interesting was it's a Sunday afternoon, it's 6 p.m., and every single one of them's closed. So in the cash world, there's still a 9 to 5 mentality. We spend 24/7. So this is another opportunity to say the use case when I send money to a friend in Colombia on a Sunday at 7 o'clock and everything's closed because retail's closed on a Sunday afternoon because people have lives. They need to spend it now. They need to do something now. That's why I think the stablecoin with the cards or the digitization to go to somewhere else or spend somewhere else or bill pay somewhere else, that really creates that 24/7 layer. I think that 24/7 layer has some maturing to do. Cash layer, cash is king in a lot of places. That's still going to be the case. But there are instances, and they're growing instances, of where you really do need cash outside of those layered hours. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting evolution for sure.
A brave new world. With markets going 24/7, payments, all these things, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It just means we get less sleep, that.
Yeah. So on a note, I with the advance of AI, are you looking at that, how that can assist in certain ways?
I want to announce we're doing an AI stablecoin. We're going to get both buzzwords together. No. AI is interesting. So I think you could spend 2 hours talking about AI on its own and the evolution and humanoid robots, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. Nothing's going to go wrong. I think AI just adds to that speed of movement. So you get agentic bots, or agentic agents working on your behalf, doing things. So you say that, hey, I'm going on vacation, sit and wait till the flight gets the cheapest, or sit and wait until these hotels in these areas at this star, and these are my 5 options, get the right place, or I get my last points and do these things on my behalf. They happen automatically 24/7. So I think you're getting to faster commerce, you're getting to faster decision. Certainly now, I think you're not researching in Google anymore, you're researching in the AI. And so the next evolution there is I've researched, I found what I want, I now purchase. So if you think about your natural flow in a Google or pick your search engine, and you're like, I found what I want, I'm now going to go to a site, I'm going to purchase. I think that natural flow just goes through that process. And then it comes down to, do I have the funds to do it? How do I get those funds? So in our instance, we're in the Western space, it's in our account. In other instances, these are needs things, like my heater's broken, I need one right now. How do I get that? Well, send me money for my heater. You can pay that automatically through where it needs to go and the product arrives. So I think it all starts tying together, and it's just speed. It's going to get driven by speed. Those natural hops are just going to get faster, and they're going to close. And you're going to get recommendations from AI at some point, just like you did from Google, where it's listening and you get the 50 things you never wanted all the time. You're like, I didn't know I wanted that, but now I need it. That's happening, I think, at some point.
Oh yeah,
that's going to be quite scary.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's going to get quicker.
Yeah, it's almost inevitable, right? Yeah, it's just par for the course. What's on your roadmap for this year for digital assets? Obviously, the stablecoin's a huge one.
Yeah, so I think it's really my roadmap. Like I like simplification. So we have the 3 use cases. Bring those to the markets that they need to go to. So the treasury piece with the coin. We've already started minting our first coins in treasury now, so it's well underway. Bringing that to market and really closing out some of those places where we park money today, and actually removing some of that as where can we really make a big dent on our operational efficiency The second piece on the roadmap is really the stable cards. Like, how do we push those out, really driving some of that adoption and really getting, some of those users that are, the receiver side, leveraging those products. And then in the digital asset network, really growing those partners, like really helping them with their own wallets and their adoption. So these are SaaS partners that have multiple wallets, multiple companies they serve. So really, how do they convince those guys that cash is real on the back? So the roadmap for this year is quite simply that, and then building out the core capability in the company. So we're very much, unfortunately, in a boring implementation phase.
Sure.
The excitement's gone for me. It's like now we're trudging through the implementation and compliance and legal meetings and the usual thing you would expect in a big organization. So it's quite a boring roadmap, I'm afraid. 2027, AI coins, definitely, agentic coins. Just find a buzzword. We'll figure it out. So I think, next year, MiCA is obviously, we have European banking licenses, so that's on the cards.
Oh, yeah.
How do we do, is an MXPT a thing? Do we need to do a Mexican-based coin? Mexico is a big remittance market for me. So it's really growing out that ecosystem even further into the next layers. I think it'd be interesting where DeFi goes, so really keeping an eye on, the communities and pods from people like Solana and seeing what pops out of there as things we can support. And then on the big corporate side, working with our big agents. So how do we help, get liquidity moving between us and those things? So it's interesting. Everyone wants USDC today. We need to move USDC. And I'm like, okay, yes, you're right, we do. So.
Well, that's exciting. I mean, obviously you got to hit the ground running, right, to get all this implemented and get adoption. So I'm excited. And, as things progress, I would love to have you back on to talk about it. I got some wrap-up questions here for you. First, if you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be?
So, look, for people who don't normally know, I got this question in advance. So if you asked me without sending me, I would have got stumped. So I thought about this a little bit. And then I went into my personal life and I'm like, I think it would be quiet by design. So for me, I like simple utility of things, and I'm getting older, which means I'm getting more grumpy as an Englishman. So simple utility, I walk around going, why does it just not work? Why does that just not work? It used to just work. So quiet by design is kind of interesting to me, where you're constantly being hit. There's constant alerts for everything. And I think in our space, when we're creating products and utilities, it has to be in the background. It has to just work. It has to be quiet in what it does and just be running the function of what you're doing. So a good example would be, I really like the stable card, for example, not because we're building it, because of the fundamental thing of what it is. It's just a very simple way to say, I'm sending you money. You don't have to touch a thing. If you say you want it on this card, it's just going to appear. So you can send me a text saying, hey, happy birthday, sent you $50. And I know it's on this card. It's quiet by design. I get the interaction I want with you, and my money's there. That's the perfect metaverse for me. Like, I don't have to do anything, I don't have to touch anything. It just works. It's quiet. Yeah. So I think it's that. And I thought long and hard about it. I'm like, I just want everything to be quiet as I'm getting older. Ask somebody who's 25, they're like, I want noise, I want flashing lights, I want bells, I want cha-chings going off on my phone every 3 minutes. Yeah. But as you get older, you're like, just peace and quiet would be nice.
I can totally relate to that. Rapid fire questions. Favorite food?
Hamburger. I do like my cheeseburgers.
Favorite musician or band?
I think, again, I'm a Manchester lad, so it's got to be the Stone Roses. Lean a little bit towards Oasis for the people who know what that is. For the American Stone Roses, that's my era. That's the Manchester boys. So it would be the Stone Roses, I'm afraid.
Very cool. Favorite movie?
Oh, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Like very much that English bad boy theme.
Yeah. Favorite book?
Favorite book? There's a Netflix show about it. It's the 1163. It's a Stephen King book about a guy who goes back to stop the assassination of JFK. I read that years ago, and they've just done a Netflix. So call out for a show on Netflix. You should watch it. It's super interesting. I can't remember the actor who's in it, 'cause I'm terrible. This is the old brain coming in. So that would be my favorite book. Like, I'm not a big fan of horror books, but that was a very good book, and the Netflix show is really cool.
Oh, I have to check out both. I'm a fan of Stephen King, but I have not heard of that. And I would definitely watch on Netflix.
Yeah, the other one is, I caught it recently. Mr. Mercedes is another Stephen King book. Again, that's on Netflix in Colombia, I discovered, because I downloaded it, but not here. Another bad shout out for Netflix. There we go. But I'm not a big Stephen King genre, but that seems to be the one that's always stuck with me. It's like, it was just a really interesting concept of, if you went back and changed history, what would it be? The assassination of JFK, and then what would that look like? And it was quite dystopian, actually. So
wow. Very interesting. I love time travel movies and themes, so I'm fascinated by that. So I'll definitely check it out. And when you're not working, what are you doing for fun?
So I'm really getting into my padel at the moment. A lot of like moving tennis and padel, and getting older, so I can't play them big impact sports. So getting hit by a ball still doesn't hurt too much. So I do enjoy that. And then, I really enjoy my family. I have an awesome 12-year-old and my wife. So traveling with those guys, really, seeing different parts of the world and how people live and work and enjoy life, it's eye-opening. And I've had great opportunity to travel to a lot of places. So I'd encourage anyone to do that. Get off and go and see something.
Oh, absolutely.
Get off the pinging phone. Like, go and look at something.
Absolutely. Experience life, experience different places.
Yeah. Again, I sound like an old guy today. I'm definitely I'm having an old guy day.
Malcolm, absolute pleasure. I love what Western Union is doing, and I would love to do a round 2.
No, absolutely. This has been great fun. Like, it's the first in-person one I've done like this. So this is, again, we're getting back to in-person.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank
Malcolm.
you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't as yet. If you're listening on a podcast platform such as Spotify or Apple, please follow and leave a 5-star rating. Thank you so much.